G'day guys, and today I'd love to give you a quick little introduction to one of my favourite bits of philosophy, that of Epicureanism. Now, Epicureanism is based on the teachings of the ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus, and it attempts to answer the question, a very complex question, what is the greatest good and how do we lead a good life and this sort of thing. And I'll read you out what he reckons. So Epicurus, or his teaching, states that the greatest good is to seek modest pleasures in order to attain a state of tranquility, freedom from fear, and absence from bodily pain. That's from philosophybasics.com. Now, Epicureanism, especially at its inception, is often conflated with hedonism, but it differs in that hedonism states that pleasure is the greatest good and you should be seeking to maximize your pleasure in order to live a good life, whereas Epicureanism states that you want to be focusing on happiness, again, focusing on pleasure, but you want to bring about this by attempting to reduce bodily pain, reduce fear, and achieve a state of tranquility. Now, to get this state of tranquility, what Epicurus reckoned was that you could attain this through limiting your worldly desires. So you're not going out and trying to enjoy every sensual pleasure you can, rich meals, sexual pleasure, this sort of thing, fine garments, nice place to live, and that sort of thing. That would only bring about greater wants. Human wants are basically infinite. You buy yourself something nice, that doesn't solve all your problems, it doesn't make you happy. There's always some other thing that you want, and this is a big problem we have nowadays in our post-consumerist culture, where people think that buying things makes them happy, they buy the thing, it doesn't, and then they get very confused and upset. So by limiting your desires, it helps you achieve tranquility. You can also achieve a state of tranquility by furthering your knowledge of the world, and also by living a virtuous and temperate lifestyle. So again, that's just highlighting the difference between hedonism and Epicureanism, because whilst hedonism advocates you should be running around seeking as many pleasures as possible, attempting to maximize your pleasure, Epicureanism is attempting to say, no, let's put a sort of handle on that, let's rein ourselves back in and attempt to live a more temperate life, a more modest life, a more certainly a more life with limited desires. And one of the famous quotes from Epicurus is, "Send for me a pot of cheese so that I may have a feast whenever I like." So obviously that's just him saying he doesn't need to have the excess of food and consumerist culture and that sort of thing. And that was something that was actually going on in his day. The market setting of the Greek cities and this sort of thing. People were getting more wealthy; they could afford to buy lots of nice stuff. And Epicurus sort of shunned this, and he sort of lived in his own compound with his friends and grew his own food. And again, shunning this sort of lifestyle and that sort of thing. So he was arguing for moderation and simple pleasures, and he abstained completely from sex and lavish appetites. So why does Epicureanism appeal to me on a personal level? Well, again, touching back on that consumerist culture that I was speaking about before, in this modern day world that we live in, often value and worth and a sense of self even is derived from material goods. You want the house, you want the car, you want this, you want that, and that sort of thing. And again, we're tending to focus on material goods rather than, say, spiritual goods, intellectual goods, wisdom rather than material goods. And I think Epicureanism provides us a pipeline to this sort of thing, because it, again, shunning those material goods, advocating for a tempered life, a more modest life, and this sort of thing. And it's sort of breaking that false association that material goods bring you happiness, because again, they don't. Because it's very interesting nowadays that we have more resources than ever before. We can basically get whatever we want. Even the most poor and destitute person in a Western country, at least nowadays, is far better off than, say, a medieval peasant, serf under the aristocracy and that sort of thing. But we're more miserable than ever, we're more depressed than ever, we're more stressed than ever, more anxious than ever. And again, that seems to be quite dichotomous, because again, we're having our basic needs taken care of very, very lavishly. We can have almost anything we want at any time, food, porn especially, and this sort of thing. So why are we becoming more and more miserable? Well, the answer is that clearly we've made a terrible distinction in marrying up, self-worth and happiness and all these things with material goods, because they're not one and the same, they're not synonymous. Happiness, again, comes from something else, and this is a good argument, I think, for what that something else may be. Again, freedom from pain, freedom from bodily harm, and a state of tranquility. Because again, we don't need to run around attempting to maximize our pleasure. That has its own problems, the pleasure paradox and this sort of thing. We don't need to run around attempting to gather up so many material goods. You can probably recall moments in your life when you were happy, when you were free from bodily pain, free from fear, in a tranquil state, and you weren't surrounded by every bit of technology, every bit of lavish foods and this sort of thing. Happiness can also sometimes and very often does come from very simple situations. Simply being out in the sunshine. I really do appreciate sunshine since I'm locked in the workshop all day. Just having a quiet afternoon with your friends, laughing, carrying on, and that sort of thing. Again, just highlighting the fact that you don't need these massive material goods, you don't need these massive dopamine dumps to achieve a happy place, a happy lifestyle even. And again, I think we can achieve a happy lifestyle by, again, hitting a state of tranquility, freedom from bodily pain, and freedom from fear, essentially. I also think it's pretty good to attempt to limit your desires, have more modest desires in our crazy consumerist culture nowadays, because obviously a lot of the money that's flowing around the world is based on, preying on people's insecurity. You don't have this, you're missing out on this, and that sort of thing. And I think you can save yourself a lot of hassle, a lot of fear, even the fear of missing out, bodily pain. Yes, you cringe that you don't have this nice new thing and that sort of thing. You can save yourself a lot of trouble and a lot of unhappiness by reining in your pleasures. Say, maybe I don't need the super nice project car. Maybe I don't need the super nice clothes and that sort of thing. Maybe, I don't need nice clothes to have a good time with my friends and that sort of thing. And that's the sort of thing that Epicureanism advocates for. So that's why I think it's a really cool piece of philosophy. It's something that I attempt to live by. I'm a bit of a stoic, as you've seen on the channel before, but I'm also a bit of a Epicureanist at the same time. So it's sort of something that I'm balancing up in my life and seeing what's, some applications are good, some applications are good. Dip your toes in each one. They're both pretty cool, and it's done me a lot of good, and I hope it does too. So that's a little basic introduction to Epicureanism. If you have anything to add to this conversation, I please advise you to drop it down in the comment section below. Thanks all for sticking around, and have a good one.